think that we're going to economize some time without my speech as the moderator. So let's get down to business. My name is Sokolov Denis. I'm the head of research and development in Cushman and Wakefield company. Today we're going to talk about the urban development solutions, the development of agglomerations. We take a look at the best, the most interesting projects in this sphere. So today, the plenary session, there have been said much about the challenges in front of agglomerations, the urban development, urban management challenges, epidemiology challenges. Of course, while developing, the agglomerations are keep on developing. They cannot stop at what have been achieved. That's why at our session, the development of redevelopment are combined together. So I would like to represent our great speakers, Sergei Lokin, Victoria Hills, Alexei Dabashin, Eric Van Egerat, Maxim Gassiev, and Konstantin Timofeyev. I hope Sergei Kuznetsov is going to join us. Sergei Kuznetsov is here at the right place at the right moment. Sergei, please take your seat. So let's start our session. I give the floor to the head of the Urban Development Department, Mr. Lovkin. Please take the floor. Good afternoon, dear friends. I would like to apologize. I'm organizer of this forum. We have so overlaps when it comes to time limits. So the scale of the forum is that huge, and the interest in the forum is so enormous, as some minute issues happen. So I'd like to apologize to our foreign partners, first of all, and foreign participants. Any megapolis, such as Moscow, which is among the three biggest European megapolises, metropolises in Europe, and the 10 hugest in the world, requires particular attention to development and redevelopment of the territories. Moscow is a very unique metropolis when it comes to many aspects. It used to be a huge industrial city in the Soviet era, and the heritage of light and heavy production, including the central part of Moscow, of course the inner part of Moscow, so closer to the Moscow Central Circle as the vein going through Moscow. Most companies of heavy machine building, of heavy manufacturing cease to exist, and they just like warehouses, abandoned areas. There is a branch out as the redevelopment of these industrial territories, which account for 17% of old Moscow. It is a key task of our government, and it has been successfully tackled within the last 6 years. We have achieved the level of 2 million per year, 10 million of real estate for last 6 years. The main point is this is a complex approach. It's not just residential housing, but it is complex development. It's the project, the ZIL project. It is a buzzword right now. I think that 10 minutes walking distance to Kremlin, it is the most high-scale project which is going to be developed within 10 years, 6 million of real estate with very interesting and wonderful river, sidewalks, transport, access. There is a central Moscow circle. It's going to be our pride. The second mega project is in New Moscow. So I'm not going to talk much about that. I'm within time limits. You can take a look at our stand, can get all the information about New Moscow, what has been done for the latest 5 years when it has became the part of Moscow, and all the necessary information can be received at the stand. But the main thing I would like to stress, it is the reserve and the capacity, the potential of Moscow development. which many speakers have been saying. They keep on saying that all the agglomerations are going beyond their borders, as within the agglomeration this has not only been development and redevelopment, restoration of the cultural heritage sites. We don't have any more opportunity to develop the potential of the city economy. It required moving beyond our borders, our potential for the following 20-30 years. And the Moscow is effectively developing the transport infrastructure. There are some roadways, highways, Kalushka, Vnukov axis is being developed, the central circle. It all creates new opportunities for the future to come. The scale of transportation projects are at the level of 12 Moscow cities. We are among 3 cities in terms of the development, the dynamics in transportation development. 3 years ago, we made research with PricewaterhouseCoopers. We were at the 2nd place in terms of the rail transport, including underground and commuter trains and inner tram transportation system. After this central circle, we are on the 1st place. And the key project, which is quite interesting, it's a mega project to the project of renovation, which is starting to emerge and develop. It is a very necessary project for the city. With all this discussion going on, which had some negative aspects together with positive aspects, citizens expressed their opinion. 90% of citizens voted for. More than 4,000 of block houses are on the list. What Moscow is going to do has now similar projects in any metropolis. There are no simultaneous projects going on like that. So it is directed at one thing. We should make it clear that in 10 or 15 years, as these old houses stakes, where the wearing out 40 to 60%, 60% is wear out period, so it can live for some period of time. But I say that after the 70% level, it's going to be very dangerous place to live in. So 25 million of there is 15 million. It is not possible to repopulate all the people when there is an emergency situation. So it is a long-term program. So we need to start in good time to have right dynamics, to look into the opinion of the citizens. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Sergey. We have been attentive to the stake of Moscow, to the potential. It is very huge. Much is being done. There are many projects in our task. For the representative of business, for instance, and for individuals, we need to understand this potential in order to plan our life in line with this direction of development, in order to benefit greatly. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Kuznetsov. Sergey. So we have mentioned the crunch bout and the project of reconstruction of industrial level. I would like to talk to you about ZIU territory. It is one of the mega projects in Moscow. Can I be heard? Okay, right now I can be heard. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm pleased to see how many people have been visiting today our plenary discussion, ZIU territory. Who is responsible for slide? So it doesn't work? Okay, so it works. The ZIU territory, most of present here know where it is located. It is a vivid example of renovation of prior industrial territory. Huge production facility in Moscow, and one of the biggest in the Soviet Union. It's a short story in order to brief you on what it used to be. It's a huge factory, many people engaged, many employees, a huge scale of production until recently. Oh, you are aware, after the collapse of the Soviet Union and its manufacturing capacity, many things have been lost, have been changed, degraded. So ZIL territory has done the same. It used to be the heritage of the countries, and the territory for a very long period of time has been in the condition of deficit for the city, generated losses and bring no benefits. So the solution was made. The decision was made that it was necessary to redevelop, to reconstruct it totally, to substitute the functionality, which is on this slide, multifunctional city tissue. The territory has good prerequisites for that. 400 hectares. It's very close to the center of Moscow. It's about 20 minutes by river. I'm going to touch upon that a little bit later. ZIL territory is within the concept of Moscow River development concept, and the decision was made to develop this territory along with a huge number of functions in order to turn it in a city tissue.
So not like monofunction areas, but this will be more like the center of the city, not like periphery of the city. Here you can see the spots of development. Here you can say that there is a little bit more than ZIL, the ZIL till the old source of Moscow River. You can see the third circle. Also there is the territory which is a little bit above to the north, and the territory to the east. This is a huge park for entertainment. Also, also there is the booth of this of the representative of this park. There are also sports sites, of course, residential areas. On top of that, there is new planning on this territory, new format of planning. And if you can look at the projects which were done in 60s, so you will never see such planning. This special zones, there is very clear zoning into parks and embankments, a lot of embankments, about 10 kilometers of embankment, and so you can see this quite a huge part of embankment. And new bridges emerge, also new subway station, Techno Park, also the project Moscow Road, Circle Road, and there will be other slides. So there is this huge example, and the program of renovation will have it like an approach, and approaches to many territories where the renovation program will appear. There are some objects. This is a hockey center, synchronized swimming. These are the sites which are still on the plan. You can see here quite pompous structures, and also there are about 30 architects work on this site. This is a very important part of the concept. If you take some piece of historical city, for example, Moscow, St. Petersburg, or London, on 400 hectares of any area, there are many different authors. Always it was like this. This is a practice which is true. And the Soviet tradition, which is unkind, when one architect makes a lot of pieces, plots, and these become very monotonous and boring, and the environment becomes depressing, ugly, and gloomy. It does not improve the city. That's why here we have many architects working together. This is the object of Hani Rashida, also very serious architects, well known. Besides of these sites, the Hami architect, the Hami also creates the draft of St. Petersburg Hermitage. This is a very interesting site, very interesting project. Maybe it will be very, remarkable. Also, there are many spaces. This is the city of boulevards, embankments, streets. This is not just residential areas, but this is like space which has functions. A lot of functions. And some other pictures, some other sites, Hani Rashid's sites. This is one of the boulevard. It's a new, very important axis. Axes are characteristic for the powerful urban planning. Axes are very good in Paris, in St. Petersburg. In Moscow we did not have axes, but now ZIL is an example of such axis and of such planning. You can see bright architecture of our architects, Russian, non-Russian, our colleagues, also Moscow colleagues, design very unusual sites also. This is the embankment. Different stories about the embankment. Not everything is still fulfilled. There are many ideas, but Moscow usually fulfills its plans very quickly. In the pictures, you can see now pictures, but soon this will be reality. This is the picture July 17, and you can see it's actively being constructed. All solutions are turning into something real. The project ZIL was just promising at the third Urban Forum, and there was nothing. But now you can see a lot of buildings, and they are all reality already. Thank you very much. So you can go to our site. There is a lot of information there. Thank you very much, Sergey. I have a question, but maybe I will ask this in the end because we don't have time. Now I would like to give a floor to Victoria Hills. She also will speak about the largest British English project. Please, presentation.
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here representing London. I believe I have some slides also. Thank
Коллеги, с презентацией получается?
Perfect. So I work for the Mayor of London. I'm heading up one of his largest opportunity areas, and we've established a mayoral development corporation to take forward the development of that opportunity area, which I'm going to introduce to you today. I think there are a lot of similarities with the challenges, but also opportunities that we face in London to those that you face in Moscow and many of the global cities that are represented here today. We are very short on time, so part of this presentation is about being smart and putting digital in. I don't think we'll get time to cover all of that today, but I would like to introduce you to the project. Now, for those of you who have not been to London before, just to orientate yourself, you're looking at the west of London here, close to Heathrow Airport. We have about 38 opportunity areas in the London plan. That's a statutory master plan, if you like, that the Mayor of London sets out development potential for London over the next 20, 30, 40 years. And Old Oak Park Royal is the largest opportunity area. We have a real focus on London, in London now, on transport-orientated development. It was certainly the case 15, 20 years ago that transport was planned in a very fragmented way and not directly connected to how planning and delivery of homes and commercial space. But with the role of the Mayor of London, and now 17 years on since we re-established that role in London, we have a very strong transport agency called Transport for London, working with the Greater London Authority to integrate the two things together. And there are very good reasons for that. Firstly, it enables you to provide much denser capacity around where transport infrastructure is going in. But secondly, the geography of London is a little different to Moscow, for example, where we're very restricted through historical green belt policy. So a lot of the easy to develop sites have already been built on. And we now have a choice between developing on brownfield sites or the green belt. And developing on green belt is not politically acceptable to the Mayor of London. So we need to find ways of developing on the brownfield land. Brownfield land is the brownfield land that's left in London is invariably very difficult to develop. And so there has to be a special reason why you would put in the extra funding and infrastructure that's required to bring that forward. And we have a special reason in West London because we have High Speed 2, the UK's second high-speed rail network, coming from the north of the country down to London. The first place it touches London is this little-known place called Old Oak. The reason it's stopping there is because it's the only place in the country that connects with Crossrail. This is the £15 billion railway set to open next year in London. And so you have two national rail infrastructure projects coming together for the only place in the country which provides the opportunity. That's our catalyst for regeneration. It's our Olympic factor, if you like. And this location is very special. It will be 10 minutes from Heathrow, 8 minutes from the West End, and 38 minutes from Birmingham. So it's a really important location. So, you know, you have these challenges here in Moscow. Other world cities were growing faster than we'd anticipated. We're not quite at your sort of 18 million agglomeration, but we're certainly on track for 10 million within a few years. And, you know, that's great for growth, but where's everybody going to live? And so there's a real need to find that space for the homes, for the jobs, and the Mayor of London has these statutory powers. He can set out where he would like the jobs and homes to go in the London plan, and that came up with these rather challenging figures for Old Oak and Park Royal. And it's all about ensuring that the station, we make the very most of this future station. Now, we call it a super hub station. You may not be familiar with that term. But what this is saying is it's a very large station. It's the largest new build for over 100 years in the UK. It's the largest subsurface station we've ever built. And so that provides an opportunity not just for interchange, but also to put development around it. Now, the UK is a small country. We don't have a lot of high-speed rail because it's relatively easy to get round compared to larger countries such as Russia. But we do have this second line opening up, and that does provide an opportunity for delivery of homes and jobs. So just a little about the role of the Mayor of London in this. He has powers to establish mayoral development corporations for strategic sites that are complicated, sites that spread administrative or jurisdictions, boundaries. Having entities such as development corporations working to the Mayor of London means that you can pull together different agencies, you can collaborate across boundaries, and most importantly, you can take the planning powers off the local boroughs and pull them together into one single entity, which is really important for driving forward delivery of this opportunity area. So just a couple of words on mayoral development corporations. We have the full planning powers from 3 boroughs that are covered by this area. We also have CPO powers, which is land assembly powers. We have regeneration powers. And that means that we can get on with delivering the much needed homes and jobs in London. Just to give you an idea of the scale, the previous presenter was talking about 400 hectares. The entire site is 650 hectares, but we have a core development site here of broadly 140. Where we see most of the development going in. And just to put it into context, because I'm guessing most of you won't have heard of Old Oak, it's not some sort of backwater out in outer London. It is zone 2, 3, and you can just compare the size to some of the other more familiar development sites that you may be aware of in London there. Now, one of the things that we grapple with in London massively is land ownership, because whoever owns the land captures the value. Uniquely here, all of the land shown in pink is actually owned by the government, the Department for Transport and Network Rail. So that means that we're working very closely with them. They sit on our board so that we can work about how we can bring forward the opportunity area. But most importantly, a big theme in London and the UK at the moment, and if this conference was in London, you would be speaking a lot about land value capture, which is shorthand for how you can capture the value that future infrastructure brings to pay for the wider infrastructure, the wider needs of the community, whether they be bridges or roads or schools or police stations or whatever. So that's a very sort of live subject of discussion. So we have an agreement with principal, with government to bring that land across to bring forward this site. And I'm just going to rattle through this because we are very short on time today. But one of the reasons I'm here in Moscow is to learn and exchange stories about how we can move forward to bring forward this important site to develop high quality homes, to bring in the new connections across infrastructure, how you bring forward difficult sites, because we only have difficult sites left in London. As I say, the easy ones are all done a long time ago. How we can deliver quality places that people really want to live in. We have many assets in the area already. The UK's largest industrial park is one of them. If I had a little bit more time, I'd want to talk about how we want to make it the UK's first digital smart city, which we have an opportunity to do because we're not retrofitting anything. We can put in the future-proof technology, the ducts that are required, whatever it is to get cables in to enable the buildings to be joined up and smart from the start, which is what we would like to do. But I would just like to sort of finish up by saying that it is transport that's important. And it's the stations of the future that are important. This is one taken from West Kowloon, an example in Hong Kong. I also have, I thought I had Santiago Calatrava's Oculus in New York. I don't. But it's about how we can make the most of the station as the catalyst for regeneration. Here it is in New York, and of course you already have these fabulous stations in Moscow already that are your catalyst for regeneration. And I'm sure there are many opportunities to intensify the land use around those stations, because in London we certainly feel that infrastructure is the key, and transport has a big part in playing, so you can turn places like this into that, and it's the transport that enables it. I could carry on, but I think you're probably going to stop me. Suffice to say, it's not authoritarian. We do take the community with us. We do have local representation on our board. So please do stay in touch, and I'd be delighted to speak to any of you afterwards in a bit more detail. But here's how you can stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria, especially for trying to keep on track with time. Спасибо большое. Я думаю, что сейчас...
Now it's time to give a floor to the representative of business, Maxim Gaseev, please. You are welcome.
Please tell us about your experience, redevelopment and development. Good afternoon. I'm going to be brief on 3 projects which are being developed by us and what is common in terms of implementation in renovation industrial areas. I'm going to be brief as we lack time, so I'm going to skip some points. The first project is the environment, which we are implementing together with Hispanic architect Ricardo Bafilo. The environment is a part of a huge industrial area of more than 400 hectares, the huge number of landowners. So revitalization of this industrial area is a huge challenge to the city in general. Being developers, we have a smaller part of the task. So we own 40 hectares. For us, it used to be a mechanic factory, Karachaysk mechanic factory. It still exists. Elevators are being assembled. The first stage of our project was to shift this factory to the half of this territory. We developed new workshops for them. We removed them. It was very expensive. Now we have 20 hectares. So the red part is our project to the left, the same territory for 20 hectares. When now elevators are being produced, the second stage will be the development of this area. Now we're thinking and developing the project of replanning for 80 hectares. We're thinking of where to remove this factory, as the use of such huge territory for the production of elevators with low coefficient of development, it's not the way it's supposed to be, for Moscow particularly. Here the idea which Sergei has mentioned already has been implemented as a clear hierarchy of space. There are closed blocking territories, there is space between these territories, there is a huge area in the form of park, which is going to provide access to all the citizens. It happens thanks to the intensive work of this city. So we and the city simultaneously developing this region. We are developing the underground station lines, and it was found out that the underground lines are going to go through our territory, and we spend a lot of time to develop this project in line to move these lines, so we increase the density on the area. There are 3 skyscrapers of 150 meters each, so we first thought that it was a tragedy, but now we think that it's a good blessing. So we made lemonade out of lemon. So we are going to implement one of the skyscrapers, and we are going to achieve higher classes, diversification within the product. But we are not the only who are developing. Developers are doing the same thing, and mostly it is becoming kind of liquidity stuff. The demand for the real estate is increasing. Transport infrastructure is being developed. New underground station has been opened. I'm sorry, Central Moscow Circular. Moscow Central Circular. Nizhgorodskaya going to 2 underground lines, so they do understand that whatever within the 10 minutes walk distance is going to be high demand. I have 3 minutes left. So the project which is going to be implemented with the Dutch architects. What I'm going to say in this regard, we take a look beyond the project, and we saw that on the left, on the right here, there is the park of 50 years anniversary to Moscow. It is quite huge, and it is just finished close to our area, and Kolominskaya is from upper going down. It is less than 1 kilometer distance from our territory. So that's why we suppose that within several years to come, we're going to develop a bridge, and we're going to link these pedestrian paths used by pedestrians and by cyclists. And within this block, we see quite a good green line at the top, and it is not connected with the park. So with our project through this green zone, we are linking. We continue this pedestrian lane. So the project connects different parts of the cities. So this hierarchy was developed quite sophisticated way, as these inner blocks of flat haven't been fenced. Say they over the city by 1.5 meters. It creates so-called privacy without this fence, which is more interesting and more sophisticated approach. And the third project I'm going to mention, it's a Pravda project, 10 hectares owned by us. In fact, the production facility zone is quite huge, and we are opening this territory. We do understand that it is surrounded. So in order to lower the pressure on transport, now we expect 50 to 50 residential and office buildings. And in our project, we are seeking for the balance between the public and private zones, as within this project, They're going to be mixed use of office buildings, residential buildings, and the heritage monument. There is Vegaterka company in the building which is going to stay there. And Sergei has mentioned already when he talked about ZIL, there are different architects. With one architect, we developed the first project, and he offered particular code through which further projects are going to develop. And the second phase has been developed. Now we have special auction, special contest. We are going to choose another architect who is going to have a level field. It's going to be a mixed city environment in terms of architecture and in terms of functions. We're going to have three functions mixed: administrative function, entertainment, and design. Thank you very much. I was brief. Dear colleague, my mic doesn't work. Oh, thank you very much, Maxim. I think so. We're going to continue our conversation about the project. I'd like to give the floor to Alexei Dabashin. Please tell us about your project, and please be within your time limits. Thank you very much, Maxim, for keeping with your time limits. Good afternoon, dear friends. Starting from 2002, we've been dealing with the blocks and neighborhoods in Moscow, the 5 stories building blocks. What we have right now on our shoulders within these years, we have achieved huge experience of it's less than 155-story old buildings. So the only way is renovation, actually. If compared with a healthcare system, Grosscode is a developer company and building company. We reconstructed 5-story buildings. So we added 2 floors over, so making it a 7-story building with the whole displacement of people. The reconstruction is 2 times more expensive. For 2 years, you need to displace those people and then to move them back. It is impossible. But the main thing is what is the outcome product. So the infrastructure stays the same. The elevators. It is a particular address of Moscow, of Zhukova 16th Street. So there are elevators from outside, but they exit from the elevator to the floor between the stories. So in order to get to my flat, you need to go down or up. So what is about the care about pensioners, about the low mobility groups, when every day we hear the words of those people who get better flats of higher square footage, so all the renovation issues are behind. We have 15 years of experience, and we do think that it is the only way out. At the beginning of 2000, as Mr. Kuznetsov has mentioned, and he was absolutely right, we didn't have any experience what these neighborhoods are. It is not the houses. That's why we applied to one of the best architects from Netherlands, and we made the project of 4 neighborhoods, 450 hectares. Then we moved to different countries, to our Russian architects. We appealed to many foreign specialists. It is the purchase of knowledge, the acquisition of knowledge simultaneously. We've been building in the Moscow region, Schodnia city, 15 factories. All the neighborhoods require different kinds of pace. So to this end, we have many technologies of monolith and panel story flats. And today the task is to build out of standard bricks, non-standard houses. So this strategy has been implemented in Moscow. The tunnel is a monolith structure, so it is a panel. Many factories have modified their panel houses. So we're creating amazing city environment with ductile, with French partners. We have developed new fiber structures. I'd like to draw attention to the builders, when it add up the huge project of special research and project block and industrial block, different factories, as in the buildings is one of the sectors which by 95% uses the local content. So within the renovation program, it allows to develop techno parks which are going to produce new products, which are going to develop new products. These are the examples of our facilities as being the main developer, the participation in Spartak football stadium, Moscow architecture, a site near Tchaikovsky Palace. So thank you very much for your attention, to draw attention to the production facilities. Thank you very much. So you have mentioned foreign architect. I would like to give the floor to Eric van Egeraat. Eric, so please take the floor. Do you have presentation? Please take the floor.
Even for a foreign architect who has worked for some while in Russia, Moscow today is quite, let's say, impressive. It's even humbling to be here and to see how much has happened in the last years and how much Moscow has changed over the last 6-7 years dramatically. You have all known and heard about the numbers. The numbers are impressive. I heard that yesterday that about 5 billion euros has been spent on improving of the public domain in Moscow at the present moment. Russian architects are getting that good that at the moment Russian architects are building in New York, teaching the Americans how to build a skyscraper. So clearly a lot has changed in the last 10 years, and for a foreign architect there's very little, of course, to add to this. But still, let me try and give some comments on what I think is the problem at the moment and how to resolve it. Clearly, as you see, the problem of Moscow is not money, the problem is not the quality of architecture, the problem is the quality of life, like it is everywhere in the world. How do we better our life, and how do we make sure that the various components of our cities are adding to that better life? This is the Better Life Index you can see from the OECD. I think the Moscow government, but also the national government is promoting this, and you see the number of factors which are including in people's appreciation of better life. And that's not just money, not just architecture, that's a lot more things than just this. So let's look at where we are in the world. Vienna is a city which at the moment is considered to be the best livable place in the world. Moscow is at this moment on place 168. Is it possible to increase and to improve the situation and make sure that Moscow is #1 in the world? How does it work? If you look at Moscow, clearly Moscow is already quite a dynamic city. It's not a city like many of the American cities which have one production system and have been very, very monofunctional. It's not more comparable to America, New York, and it is definitely not comparable to anything like Venice or any other place where things are just one way only. So the fact that things are multiple, like it is in Vienna, is one of the biggest assets of Moscow in its further development. Look at other cities, Paris, look at Amsterdam, for instance. A long time it has been thought that the structure of the city is the key to the quality of the city. Amsterdam, of course, for sure, for 400, 500, 600 years has been fundamentally unchanged. The quality of life is based within this fabric of the city. So yes, indeed, the fabric is very important, and you can see it still now. 500 years ago, Amsterdam looked like this, and it's still functioning as a magnificent city. The same counts, of course, also for cities. This is a project I did when, let's say, in the last 10 years. If you build in that structure, you have to compete and you have to improve that structure in a simultaneous way as the structure itself. If you look at the other examples in the world, New York or other places, then you can see that the quality of that city has, over time, been able to be amended to new needs without modifying the structure. Activating that cities has been the key of the success of most of these cities' further development. And you can see now even this kind of projects show that activating is not just building. activating is making sure that the public space is improving and that people get more access to more spaces in the area. Another very important example is, of course, Cerda, the plan for Barcelona, which showed that over the years that same grid has been able to adapt and able to assimilate a lot more new developments. So yes, this structure is key. It is very important, but it is not the only thing. If you look at Tokyo, you can see that the difference of Tokyo, which is completely without the structure, was able to diversify heavily and could still become a very attractive city because it has that diversity. You see the enormous difference in scale and enormous difference in quality, which is living side by side. And it is exactly that quality which is important to take care of. So what my point is, if you look at Moscow in the way it was maybe in the 1950s or 60s, it looks a little bit gloom. Now already Moscow is able to assimilate all these changes, and Moscow is in itself one of the most diverse examples of a modern city already. So instead of us teaching Moscow, Moscow is now teaching us how to do it. These examples, everybody knows them, are essential to the development of Moscow. Maybe even more than simply the simple fact of a new building, a high-rise or a tower, or a new, let's say, new structure in the city. The fact that these things work doesn't mean that we don't have major problems. Like many other cities, Moscow has, like cities of Paris, huge problems when it comes to these areas. And of course, we have them a lot. And now the question is, I think, besides taking care of Gorky Park, taking care of the embankments, taking care of the public space, it is important that we start taking care of these areas. These areas need a fundamentally different approach. You need access. You need to make sure that this can be done because we need cities where people are able to walk from place to place, because that's the way people try to enjoy cities, and that's the way things are appreciated. So my last statement on the question of Khrushchevkas is, instead of demolishing and trying to sort of imitate whatever you do somewhere else, there needs to be a strategy which is far more diverse and far more sensitive than this type of approach. This cannot be. This is one of the projects I did 35 years ago. This was one of the first urban renewal projects in the world. My generation was the inventor of urban redevelopment of housing, making social housing for people with little money possible in the urban city, in the structure. And there are many examples at this moment how that is done all over the world in multiple ways. And we should learn from these, because not one approach is the way to go. We should look for a multiple approach of all these factors in our cities. That is the way forward. Expansion, yes, important, but I would like to focus much more on what you can do inside the city. These things are the way to go, but it needs also to be brought to the level of, let's say, the living areas, and not just on the fancy places in the city itself. So if you look at, very briefly, at my last point, what can we do? We should embrace diversity. You should be willing in Moscow and in Russia not to try and find one solution for everything. Try to find multiple solutions. The world is not black and white. Everybody wants to do something different. So that's what we did. We just rebuilt an existing transformer station into a housing project. This is a project in Holland. This one is not for me, but in New York. All these diverse solutions are possible to be assimilated in one and the same place. And my suggestion for these areas is the following. Simply look at the site. You see more open space than buildings. There's not just a problem of buildings, there's a problem of badly maintained public domain, and that has to be taken care of. This is the way to do that, to make sure that you follow up in a multiple approach instead of a single-minded approach to solving your cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Спасибо большое, Эрик. Вы затронули...
You touched upon a comprehensive approach. Konstantin Timofeev, please also speak about your comprehensive approach, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, Konstantin, you are welcome. Dear colleagues, investors and the representative of authorities, architects showed the major projects which we have. Also spoke about different approaches, and I would like to say about this. Maybe all of you also are thinking that you would like to create a large project to earn profit, maybe also to carry out some architectural ideas. How can we do this? Maybe you also have such thoughts. First of all, this is land. Land for such projects. These are tens of hectares. Investment land or urban land. I would like to speak about projects which we expect in the future, what city can offer you as for investments, designers, and so on. From the point of view of the city, we have several major projects. Maybe also you know this. We have the law adopted about comprehensive development of land. We have 47 areas in Moscow. These are the borders of industrial areas, but these are announced borders. But the statement is not, the regulation is not here still. We'll have this regulation when there are investments which want to put money, or so if you think that this territory is attractive, maybe you won't be the owner of this territory. Maybe anybody can come. Then if you show that you are able to do this, there will be the auction or tender, and then in accordance with the law, you will be a leader who develops this territory. This is the first part of this project. And the second part of the project, Sergei already spoke about this. These are transport hubs. These are the largest projects, and some of them are for dozens of hectares, also for residentials. This year we are preparing several projects. This will be Kasino, Nekrasovka, Timirazivka, and these are very appealing territories regarding the architecture. We have only concepts, we don't have now planning still, but we have also sizes, volumes. You can participate as architects, but of course when investor also gets this land. There are some other projects, the city is preparing them. These are so-called renovation projects. We don't speak about them now, maybe there won't be investment, but in the future it's possible. And then again, we can attract investment resources and also resources of designers and architects. It's important that such large projects are built with some urban centralization. Even ZEAL project, we realized, and even investor asked us that the city could be in charge of it. It means that we created special separate working group of people who can manage this project. The other working groups are working in other projects like transport hubs, because for investors it's very difficult to align all the companies to have documents ready, and the issues of coordination, of finances, and so on. Even in a ZEAL project, which we spoke about, it's important to have construction of road network and subway, and also social infrastructure. And that's why participate in such big projects. I don't want now to speak about some other solutions. Architects know this better. There are such examples as of these major projects, and during these days of Urban Forum, participate also in the future projects, because today we have projects and we have investors for these projects. And as the city, we also support these projects. Also, timelines are important. Thank you very much, Konstantin. Thank you very much, the speakers. We managed to hear a lot of presentations. We had quite a lot of speakers, and 2 mics don't work anymore. And now, colleagues, maybe there will be questions to speakers. And please, can you just go out from this stage, and maybe you can answer the questions during the break. Thank you very much and goodbye.